Would you all please turn your cell phone to vibration mode or to turn it off? Would you please double check to make sure that your cell phone is on vibration mode? Thank you. The first CAAC-EASA Aviation Safety Conference now begins. Distinguished Administrator, CAAC Administrator Feng Zhenlin, Distinguished Mr. Halo Lai, Distinguished Mr. Patrick Key, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is my pleasure to see you all here at this beautiful venue for this conference. Now, this venue was set up in 1960. As you can see, it is a beautiful venue. It takes up 1,200 mu, and you can see the beautiful scenery with the natural features in it. A lot of our national leaders, including Chairman Mao and Chairman Deng, as well as many other national leaders, lived here once. As a national guest house, Xijiao Hotel also had the honor to see hundreds of national leaders from other countries. I'm sure that you'll have a very good time during your stay here. With more than 1 year of preparation, with the efforts of CAAC and EASA, we are now here for the first Aviation Safety Conference. This is a very important milestone in the aviation safety area for both China and Europe. We hope this is a full success. Now, I'd like to introduce to you some of the distinguished guests and members of the leadership present at this conference. Now, will you all give them a round of applause after I introduce all of them? They are CAAC Administrator Mr. Feng Zhenlin, CAAC Vice Administrator Li Jian, CAAC Chief Engineer Ying, Mr. He, Vice Chairman of CAAC, Mr. Halo Lai, Director General of DG Move, Mr. Patrick Key, Executive Director of EASA, Mr. Fabrice Brie, Airbus COO and President of Airbus Commercial Aircraft, and also present at this meeting are members of the leadership of the aviation industry of both China and Europe. With time limits, I don't give them an introduction one by one. Now let's welcome their presence here today. For this conference, we've got 3 main topics. For the first part, we'll have Mr. Li Jian, Vice Administration of CAAC, and Mr. Patrick Key, Executive Director of EASA, to give you keynote speeches. And for the second part, we'll have Mr. Feng, as well as Director General of DG Move, Mr. Halo Lai, as well as Mr. He, President and Vice Chairman of CAAC, and Mr. Fabrice Bucci, Airbus COO and President, the 4 of you to give you keynote speeches in a second part. And after the keynote speeches and after tea and coffee break, we'll continue with our third part. That is a panel, a plenary on the benefits of our BASA. So before we get into the conference, I give you some housekeeping rules. We've got 2 entrances altogether for this conference room. Now, for safety reasons, in the unlikely case of an emergency, would you all please listen to the staff of this hotel to get out of the meeting room. And out of this meeting room, we've got tea break and coffee break. There's another room there are 3 different rooms, meeting rooms for our lunch, and we will give you detailed arrangement before the end of our morning session. Now we'll go into the first agenda item of this meeting. I'll give the floor to Mr. Li Jian, Deputy Administration of CAAC. Mr. Li Jian is a professional himself. He served as head and chief of Shenyang Flight Brigade, and he was also the general manager and of China's Southern Air Holding Northern Region Company and general manager of China Southern Airlines of Xinjiang Company in 2008. He was appointed a deputy administrator and a member of the party leadership group in the CAAC. He is an outstanding professional, a pilot, and a flight time of more than 18,000 hours, and in Europe only about 12,000 flight hours for different types of aircrafts, including Airbus aircrafts. As one of the members of the leadership of CAAC, he's been working very hard in the management and policy making, as well as the implementation of policies in the CAAC, and he's been contributing to the safety record and safety management of the aviation industry in China. Let's give the floor to Mr. Li Jian. Distinguished Administrator Feng Zhenlin, distinguished Mr. Halo Lai, distinguished Mr. Patrick Key, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. We're now in Shanghai in April. This is one of the best months in Shanghai. Now, this meeting is co-hosted by CAAC and EASA for the first CAAC-EASA Aviation Safety Conference. We're now seeing its successful opening. I'd like to take this opportunity first to give my welcome and gratitudes to all the members of the leadership here, as well as friends from the media and ladies and gentlemen for being here, and also for contributing to the friendly cooperation between China and Europe, and for the deepening the cooperation and the collaboration and exchanges between the two sides. Today, we are here for the future development of the aviation cooperation between China and Europe. As we all know, the bilateral relations between China and Europe in aviation industry is one of the most important bilateral relations for our two sides. In recent years, in air traffic, in air safety cooperation, in air industrial cooperation development, as well as in air talent development, we have achieved a lot of cooperation and exchanges, and we've seen great results so far. Currently, China has made bilateral transport agreement with 27 member states out of the 28 member states. We've got 15 direct routes with 15 member states. Every week, we've got 600 flights between China and Europe. In 2016 alone, between our two sides, the passenger transport was 8 million, a year-on-year growth of 15%. By the end of 2016, the registered Airbus aircraft was 13,074 aircrafts, taking up 46.5% of the transport aircrafts. The success of this conference shows that we've reached another milestone for the cooperation between our two sides. As was said by Administrator Feng, as well as Director General Hololai, yesterday, we are now in a completely new phase stage of our further development and cooperation, and this is good for our transformation into a new model of cooperation. It is good in the sense that it facilitates our cooperation and our development. CAC now has become one of the most important driving engines for the aviation development around the world. In recent years, CAAC, with the regulatory concept of safe management, has been working on the safe management, safe development in the aviation industry. We've been exploring more possibilities and been facilitating the strategy that we should place equal importance to transport, aviation and general aviation. We need to adhere to our bottom lines and need to have a comprehensive development in all different areas of civil aviation. And also, we are now starting to do our structural reform. These are all very important work in the civil aviation industry in China. With the reform, to sort out the bottleneck problems in our industry. We're trying to enhance the quality of our work. Now, in this regard, at this point, we need to take into account that Europe now enjoys a very high standard and quality in aviation industry. It is important for us to cooperate with the European side in order to further increase the quality and safety of our work. It is in our both benefits to cooperate with each other, and this is very important for the strategic partnership between us. It is in line with the interests of both sides, the long-term interests of both sides. Yesterday, CAC and EASA and DG Move signed
并签署了中国航空安全合作意向书。
the letter of intent,
双方重申
and we reaffirmed our strong
对新一批
pursuit
中国民航
and
做
willingness
出具体
to further our cooperation and
我们
made
新州民航合作当
specific
中
detailed
提
preparations
航空业
for our
界人员
future
做出
development.
启言，
Today we'll have keynote
比如
speeches from
来自中国民
distinguished
航局
members of the
欧洲
leadership
航
of
空
both
管理局
sides, and we'll
及
have
欧
members
洲
of EASA
航空工业
and DG Move, as
中
well
国航空
as
工业
major players in the aviation
航空运
industry,
营
both in
业
China
代表
and
团
in
代表
Europe,
团 双
including
边
those in
示范
safety
区域
management
领域业
and
代表
in transport, air
涉航
transport.
航
They'll be
需求
talking about the
根据导
benefits
航系统
of our
发展
bilateral
新型
cooperation, as well
应用
as the latest
空航
technology development,
航
the
线
airworthiness
协调系统
certification and
以及协
validation,
调海
as
领
well
域
as the latest trend
民航合
in
作发展
regulations,
使得
rules,
出现
and
新的
national rules. Now, with these
挑战
contribution and
新
this
的课题
exchange of ideas,
需要
we'll
立
see
刻
new area of
发展出
development
来
and new
产
opportunities
品
for development.
而
We
且世
need
界水
to
平
have to understand that everything is developing in a
此次大会
dynamic
是其中和
mode.
业界之间的一次
Now,
大
this
会
meeting is also a
交流
platform
交
for
流
the CAC
合作体
to
验
talk
希望
with the
与会
major
代表
players
及
in
参
our
与者
industry. I hope that
踊跃发
everyone
言
will be
为
frank
中
and
国
open
中国民
and
航
actively participate
初步建
in
设
this conference to give
我
new
相信
ideas and new
中国航空安
inspiration
全领域
to
将有
our
有
industry. If we can
今
do
后
so, we'll
将
have
发展
more
更多方面的合作机
healthy
会，
development in our
成为
industry and see
中
more
欧航空业
possibilities in the future.
合作
And
第二
this
个重
will
要平台。
become one of the major platforms for
望世
the
界
cooperation
望未来
in the
民航在世
aviation
界上的
industry.
地位深远，
Looking into the
望
future,
投资
civil
资源
aviation is very important
融
for
入
economic
文化
development,
交
for
流
the flow
人
of
员往来
resources,
方
of
面
talents.
具有很强大的驱动力。中欧民
It
航的发
plays a
展
very important
在进
facilitating
入高
role.
度
The
系统
development
发展
of the
共
aviation
同
industry
高
is
度运
in
营体
line
系，
with the
发
national
展优质
strategy and
高
with the
度运营
trend of the
双方
national
民航合作
development.
具有扎实的基础，
It is
潜力巨大，
to our
前景广
both
阔，
interests to
让我
have more
们
cooperation
在
between
接下
China
来
and Europe
把
in this
中欧民
area.
航
We need to work harder and
航
make
空
more
安全合
effort
作推向
to
新的高度。最
further
后，
develop our
预
cooperation.
祝本
Now,
次大会
lastly, I
取得
wish
圆满
this
成功。
conference a full
谢谢大
success.
家。
Thank you.
definitely not.
Thank you, Vice Administrator Lee, for your remarks. Now I'd like to give the floor to Executive Director of EASA, Mr. Patrick Key, for his opening remarks. In September 2013, he became the Executive Director of EASA. He's working very hard on the role, to enhancing the role of EASA and make it as one of the standard major bodies in the aviation industry in EASA. Before he became the executive director, he was also a major leader in the modernization project in Europe, which is the air traffic control system in Europe. And he was also a member of some consulting groups and the French aviation administration, all very important roles. In 2013, he was awarded by the French Aviation Gilbert Memorial Award of the Air Traffic Controller Association. Now I'd like to give the floor to Mr. Patrick Key.
Distinguished CAAC Administrator, Mr. Feng, distinguished Director General for Mobility and Transport of the European Commission, Enrico Lolai, distinguished Mr. Li Tian, Vice Administrator of the CAAC, distinguished executives of the Chinese and European industry, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it is a great honor and an immense privilege for me to be here with you today and co-host with the Deputy Administrator Li Tian the first CAAC-EASA Aviation Safety Conference. It is now my turn to welcome all of you on behalf of EASA to this fantastic place, historical place here in the beautiful city of Shanghai. Let me start my few words of introduction by maybe explaining to you who EASA is, because I had a lot of questions on this in the last days. We are a European Union agency created not that long ago, about 15 years ago, in a willingness to have a common approach to aviation safety and a level playing field for the European aviation internal market. We represent 32 member states, that means the EU 28, plus countries such as Switzerland, Norway, Iceland, and Liechtenstein. And our mission is to ensure safe travel by air using European aircraft and products, European airlines, European airports, and European air traffic control. Last year, more than 900 million passengers, out of which about half, 450 million, were traveling domestically within the European Union, so more than 900 million passengers traveled safely by air. To go maybe a bit more in detail, and as sometimes things get a bit complicated in Europe, with the multiplicity of sovereign nations, let me tell you more specifically what we do. We certify all European products on behalf of our 32 member states. EASA drafts European rules on airlines operations, maintenance, air traffic control and airport operations, common pilot licenses, licenses for air traffic controllers, maintenance engineers, and so on and so forth. Those rules are then implemented on a national basis. Indeed, to take an example, there is a common EASA pilot license, but to take an example, the authority of Finland, represented here by Mr. Hentu, is issuing the European license to Finnish pilots. And of course, EASA monitors, oversees the way in which these regulations are implemented across Europe. to guarantee consistency and a level playing field. There is also an international dimension in what we do. For instance, it's worth mentioning that since this year, all airlines from third countries wishing to operate to Europe need to be provided with an authorization from EASA. So in practice, and to maybe oversimplify, we are like the CAAC headquarters in Beijing, and the national administrations are like the CAAC regional offices. Let me now turn to safety challenges. I would like to start by saying that aviation is very safe, certainly the safest mass transportation mode. This safety level means that we have to deplore very few accidents involving commercial aircraft in Europe, as well as in China. But we should never be complacent, as only one accident has, of course, extremely dramatic consequences. Recent history has shown that, for instance, 2013 was the safest year ever for commercial aviation in the world. But 2013 was followed in 2014 by a horrible year for commercial aviation, with in particular in 2014 the two tragedies of the Malaysian flights MH370 and MH17. To take another example, the Germanwings accident in Europe in 2015 also reminded us that we should always approach safety issues with humility and try to prepare, predict, and counter the unpredictable, and this is our challenge for us safety regulators. Aviation safety has dramatically increased in the last decade, in particular thanks to this willingness to learn from our mistakes, to uncover the root causes for accidents and find and implement systematically remedy actions. But as aviation grows and becomes safer, reaction to accidents is no longer sufficient. We need to be proactive and analyze, learn, do the same work of remedy actions, not on accidents, but on what could have led to accidents. It is in this context that this particular conference has all its value. We are investing a lot of efforts in understanding the distribution of risks, the small individual weaknesses in the aviation system which can lead to a catastrophe if, as we have seen in most of recent accidents, a chain of events leads to an alignment of failures in safety barriers. It is essential to approach safety in a systemic manner, looking at airworthiness issues, but also at operational issues and the linkage and dependencies of the corresponding risks. This is the reason why in this conference we have organized sessions not only on airworthiness, but also on operations. And I'm also very pleased to say that we've had several discussions with the CAAC, not only on the certification of products and airworthiness, but also on flight standards. And I think this is going all in a good direction. It is also true that aviation is a very exciting domain of activity in which technology, but also business models are changing rapidly. It is at the same time a challenge and an opportunity. It is a challenge because change in itself introduces unknown risks. It is also an opportunity because new technologies, for instance, can simplify, automate, neutralize risks, for instance, of manual mistakes. I will just give you two simple examples on this: digitalization and drones. Digitalization is a revolution for aviation in terms of aircraft design and production, in terms of operations with connected aircraft, in terms of data availability with an enormous amount of data which are becoming available in order to increase our capacity for proactive safety analysis. You will hear about some of those challenges in a couple of panels today. This is a domain in which we are investing a lot of efforts, for instance, on big data analysis. It is also a domain which bears its own risks, such as cybersecurity risks. Drones are a new business model for our aviation world. This is another revolution. And the particularity of this revolution is that a completely new type of actors are entering the aviation field with no aviation background or competence. Again, this is creating opportunities as a number of services or operations can be undertaken in a safer and more efficient manner by drones, but it is equally creating a new type of risks with drone operators who are not necessarily conscious of the risk that they present for conventional air transport. On those two domains, it is clear that the strong drive of the Chinese economic actors will help us in Europe understand better the challenges, risks, and opportunities which can be grasped. And this is just an example on cooperation areas where we need to learn from China. Just to give you one figure, 70% of the drones sold in the world are produced and designed here in China. On aviation safety in general, but more specifically also on new technologies or business models, we realize that we regulators may have an incomplete view of the system and that it is essential to complement our approach with a safety management approach done by the industry. The new environment for safety regulation needs to take this into account. We need to be less prescriptive and rely on industry's own safety management systems. And this is the reason why I am so glad that this first conference for EU-China aviation safety is a perfect mix of presentations from regulators and industry, because this type of partnership is the only way to make progress. On all those topics that I have mentioned, there is value in exchanging between Europe and China. There is value in learning from each other. There is value in sharing best practices and experience. And this is what we will do today. I am therefore again more than pleased, very proud to open this very important conference and wish us all a very successful and fruitful day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Patrick Key, for your opening remarks. In both of their opening remarks, we've heard the importance of our cooperation in aviation management and in safety management, and they both emphasized the importance of our cooperation and the importance of safety in our joint collaboration, and they both gave their best wishes for the success of this conference. Now that brings us to the end of the first agenda item, that is the opening remarks of our conference. We'll start then without the second agenda item of this conference. I'll first give the floor to Mr. Feng, Administrator of CAAC, to give his keynote speech. Mr. Feng began his study in the Department of Highways in Xi'an Highway Institute, majoring in highway engineering. From 1982, he worked successfully in the Bureau of Highways and the Department of Engineering Department, and he worked in Germany as well in 2005 to 2008. He was appointed Vice Minister and a member of the CPC leadership of the Ministry of Transport, and he was the Vice Secretary and the Vice Minister of Ministry of Transport in 2015. And in 2016, he served as his Vice Secretary of CPC Leadership Group and Vice Minister of the Ministry of Transport and Secretary of CPC Leadership Group, Administrator of CAAC. Mr. Fong has been working for a very long term in the development of the transport work and the air transport, more specifically, promoting the framework of the work in the transport industry, as well as making transport as a key pillar in our national development. Now, I'd like to give the floor to Mr. Fong. First of all, thank you very much for the kind words of the host, Mr. Moderator. Distinguished Director General, Mr. Halalai, distinguished Executive Director, Mr. Patrick Key, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, good morning. Chinese people believe that true friendship will not be separated by seas or mountains, and European friends, our European friends usually also say that smart friends advance in uniform steps. Indeed, China and Europe are separated by ocean. However, it is friendship and cooperation between us that serve as the bridge that links us very closely together. Today, we're happy to see the members of leadership and friends of the aviation industry, both from China and Europe, to attend the first Aviation Safety Conference to discuss the cooperation between our two sides and to facilitate the safe development of the aviation industry. It is indeed a very important occasion. On behalf of CAAC, I'd like to take this opportunity to give our welcome and gratitude to everyone present here. Now, I'd like to go into several topics in detail. The first is that the cooperation between our two sides in the aviation industry has achieved great outcome based on the principle of mutual benefit and a win-win outcome. We've got a very long history between our two sides. In more than 2,000 years ago, the ancient Silk Road became the channel for our cooperation, and more than 40 years ago, we started our cooperation formally, and currently, we're now at a new stage of our comprehensive strategic partnership. Our cooperation in the aviation industry area has achieved great results, and we're now working towards a general, more flexible, more open, more pragmatic way of cooperation. More specifically, in transport, in air transport, more than 50 years ago, China and Europe signed the first air transport agreement and had the first China-Europe route. Now, we have signed a bilateral air traffic agreement with 27 member states of the 28 EU member states, and we have 15 direct routes, and about more than 600 flights are between China and Europe every week on a weekly basis. In 2016, the passenger transport was about 8 million in 2016, a year-on-year increase of 15%. In aviation safety, on the topic of aviation safety, in recent years, based on several projects, we've achieved great results in cooperation, including laws and regulations, flight standards, airworthiness maintenance, and safety management. In 2013, we signed the letter of intent for the China-Europe civil aviation comprehensive cooperation. In 2015, we had the master roadmap for our safety cooperation. In 2016, together with Patrick Key, both of us signed the memorandum for the APP. And in that APP, the safety aviation was one of the major topics. In industrial cooperation, the Airbus A320 assembly line in Tianjin is a case of point for our successful cooperation. And after we set up the completion delivery center of Airbus Air 330 wide-body aircraft, it will become the first outside Europe. And also in the manufacturing collaboration, China has been playing an increasingly large role in the joint manufacturing. Currently, we've got registered 1,400 Airbus aircraft in China, taking up half of the total number. The closer relations between the two sides in the industrial area of aviation is a very facilitating condition for the further development and collaboration in manufacturing and airworthiness certification between the two sides. In terms of talent development, in recent years, we have cooperation mechanisms of this sort, and altogether we've got 6 class of seminars for high-level management personnel for about 110 graduates altogether. We've got also a master's program for the aviation safety major, about 10 classes of 500 high-level management people. We've also have a joint engineering institute for the joint collaboration and joint development of 222 engineers and technical professionals of aviation. Currently, we've got about 560 students in total, and is a very successful example for our collaboration in education, aviation education. The second part of my speech is on the opportunity and what we need to do to make full use of the opportunities at the current stage. President Xi Jinping said that we have a mutual stake in each other's success and development. For the successful development and sustainable development of China's civil aviation, we need a healthy and stable international environment, and also the fast development of China's civil aviation industry will also make our contribution to the international aviation industry. We now have a solid foundation for the future collaboration between our two sides. We are now seeing a lot of potentials and opportunities and a wide prospect. We're now at a strategic level for our development. We both attach great importance to the role of aviation in the economic and social development on both sides. So we've placed a strategic importance on the aviation industry. The European Union is a leading player in the aviation industry, and it serves as an important driving engine for the economic development, the sustainable economic development of the European Union. China has regarded civil aviation, as one of our major national strategies. It is very important for our national strategy as well as for the well-being of our people. So the collaboration between the two sides are to the interest of both sides, and as well as to the strategic collaboration, pragmatic cooperation between the two sides. We're also highly in line to each other in terms of our development path. We're now both undergoing the structural reform. The EU has been working hard on aviation safety, on market access, and on the improvement of efficiency as well as environmental protection in order to provide a safer, more economical, and more convenient air service for passengers. And on China's side, CAAC has been working on a supply side structural reform and has a master plan of 1, 2, 3, 3, 4 to increase the efficiency and quality of our work, and as well as to the safety management of our work. CAAC, as well as for China and Europe, we can learn from each other and learn from each other's best practices. we also are complementary in terms of our advantages. We're now at different stages of development, and we have different external environment as well as resources and competencies. We have our own comparative advantages, and we're very complementary to each other in terms of the industrial development. The EU has a mature concept as well as experience and innovative capacity in terms of aviation safety and a very solid foundation of manufacturing, and you have a large space for development. And on China's side, in recent years, for China's civil aviation, it has been developing very fast, and the safety level has become the one of the top in the world. We have accumulated so far a lot of experience in aviation safety management, and we've got some organizational capacities in this regard. But we also have are faced with the grave challenges of the constraints of resource as well as some security issues. Currently, that's why we think it is complementary and it is to the interest of the both sides to cooperate, collaborate with each other. The civil aviation in China has been an important driving engine for the development of the global aviation industry. We've ranked top 2 for the past 12 consecutive years in the total transport volume. In 2016, we had a passenger transport of increase of contribution to the world aviation industry by 23 percentage point. According to our 13th five-year plan, by 2020, we'll have a total transport volume of 122 billion ton kilometers, passenger transport 720 million, freight transport 8.5 million tons, a respectively increase of 10.8 percentage point, 10.4 percentage point, and 6.2 percentage point. It means a lot of opportunities for the collaboration between the two sides in the future. Thirdly, we need to look into the future for a more comprehensive partnership between the two sides. We're now each other's major trading partners and each other's destination markets, and we need to treat each other as one of the most important partners. As was said very rightly by President Xi, we're now at the best of the times of our relations between China and Europe. We're now enjoying unprecedented historical opportunities. It is our common pursuit to have a healthy development between the two sides in aviation industry. For strategic planning, we have set up a comprehensive partnership between the two sides. More specifically, we'll have more collaboration and exchange in the following 5 parts. The first is on the way of regulatory safety regulation. We need to make more innovation in this regard. This is very important for us if we truly want to elevate our safety level. In 2008, ICAO set up a safety management system, and safety performance management was one of the major indicators. In recent years, CAAC has had a data-driven, risk-based management and regulation model, and this year we will start to put that into effect across our industry. By 2020, CAAC will have a safety and performance management system based on a rule-based safety management and performance management. The EASA is also working on a performance-based, rule-based, and risk-based safety regulation system. We hope that the two sides will deepen our collaboration in this in this area, and to share with each other the best practice and experience to elevate each other's safety level. The second part is to increase our collaboration in airworthiness. This is a very important topic in our cooperation, and it's very important to the facilitation of our collaboration in airworthiness and our comprehensive partnership. In the next 10 years, China is very likely to become one of the largest largest air transport market in the world. We have a huge demand for aircrafts. In the period of 13th five-year plan, we have a plan to have an additional 1,850 aircrafts. Now, this means that we need a collaboration between China and Europe in airworthiness. In recent years, the aviation CAAC has been working very hard on the organizational part, as well on the rules and regulations and international collaboration in airworthiness certification and validation, especially after we set up the roadmap between our collaboration. We've completed our review on the airworthiness certification system, as well as the technical display in the certification period. Currently, we're working very hard on the annex part as well as on the TIP part. We appreciate the European side on your pragmatic attitude. We highly admire your work, and we hope that on the principle of equality, mutual trust, we'll continue our work and to complete the signature of the safety agreement to an early date. And also, we hope that in the area of technical review, policy analysis, management system, and personnel training and education, we'll continue our collaboration. The third part is on air traffic management and air traffic control. In recent years, CAAC has been working on the air traffic control, the airspace control, the precision management, and the application of new technologies, so that our capacity of air traffic control has enhanced substantially. In 2016, we had an additional 9.1% of airlines, and the correction rate improved by 8.4 percentage point. Now, with an additional traffic volume, for the incidence of delay, the contribution, the attributes of air control decreased by 22.4%. We will continue our collaboration in airspace control in using more efficiently the airspace resources. And we hope that in the future we'll have more collaboration in technical collaboration, in personnel training, in terms of airspace planning, volume evaluation, as well as traffic management. The fourth part is on the general aviation. General aviation is an emerging industry of strategic importance in China. However, currently we have a relatively low volume and a relatively less modern infrastructure and relatively weak operation and support. We're still at the beginning age of general aviation. In the past 2 years, we have a set of facilitating national policies from the aviation, emphasizing on safety as well as on devolution of the power from the central to the grassroots, as well as to the front line administration and departments, to make sure that we'll have more innovation in general aviation in terms of policy making and capacity building and facilitating and the environment. In 2016, we had some collaboration and dialogue on medical rescue, medical relief in general aviation, and also using helicopter medical relief. We hope that in the future we'll continue our collaboration in general aviation in a pragmatic manner. The fifth part is on innovation in education and training. Now, this plays a solid foundation for the healthy development of the aviation industry. In recent years, the input or investment in education and training in civil aviation in China has been increasing to about 10 billion RMB, and we have now a research platform, a major research platform specifically dedicated to the civil aviation, and we have now seen the proprietary IPR as well as some research outcome on this platform. Out of this platform, each year we have more than 10,000 people graduating, majoring from flight operations and air control management, as well as some other professionals in the aviation industry. The next step of our work is mainly on the innovative pattern of work centering on outcome-based, talent-based, and efficiency-based model. We will continue to make more contribution in the aviation education and training in order to contribute to the development of the overall civil aviation industry with the application of new technologies, including the Beidou satellite navigation system, as well as the management of multi-runway airport management. And we have our joint engineering institute as well as our high-level management seminars. I'm sure that we'll be able to have more opportunities and more potentials in our joint collaboration in education and training of professional personnel in the aviation industry. Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, the successful opening of the first Aviation Safety Conference means that we're now at a new stage of our partnership. We both agree that we have a regular mechanism for this Aviation Safety Conference in order to make it as a major platform for our dialogue and for the common development between our two sides. I'm sure that with the active participation with everyone here, we'll have an even more successful aviation safety conference in the future. We hope that all of you present here for the rest of your day will be open and frank and will be here to share with your ideas for the benefit of the collaboration and partnership between China and Europe. Lastly, I wish this conference a full success. Thank you.
Thank you, Administrator, for your great speech. Mr. Feng reviewed our cooperation in the past and also looking forward to our future deepening cooperation between China and Europe. He pointed out 5 areas in which we could deepen our cooperation that will greatly help us to foster a long-term partnership that will be beneficial to both sides. Let me once again thank Administrator Feng for his speech. Next, let me introduce to you Mr. Henrik Hololi. He became the Deputy Secretary General for European Commission. He started his career as a counselor to the Minister of European Affairs. From 2001 to 2002, he was the Minister of Economic Affairs of the country. He also was the chairman of the Estonia Council of Senior Civic Servants for the EU integration. And he moved to European Commission as head of cabinet of commissioner similar Sim Kallas. And also he became head of cabinet of vice president of EC, responsible for administration, audit, and anti-fraud. And in 2015, he was nominated as Director General for Mobility and Transport. He has been a recipient of numerous awards include Finland's Grand Cross of Lion of Finland. Now it's my pleasure to invite Mr. Holloway to make a speech.
Good morning, everyone. Dear Administrator Cheng Xiling, dear Vice Administrator Li Jin, dear Patrick, dear friends, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, first of all, for the very nice introductory remarks. And it's really an honor and a pleasure to be here today and among such esteemed speakers addressing a very impressive and numerous audience. I very much like to thank the CAAC and EASA for organizing this prominent event, which offers the opportunity for Chinese and European aviation leaders to come together to discuss and exchange ideas and experiences in terms of aviation safety as a driver for improvements in the field of aviation. China is one of the EU's most important strategic partners. And I was also very encouraged to hear Administrator Peng saying the same thing earlier about the European Union. Not only are we partners, I think what's also important to underline is that we are friends. And I think that this is a good opportunity to deepen our relationship. And we also attach a lot of importance to our excellent relations in transport. We are together interested in looking into how to better connect Europe and Asia and how to make it easier to move goods, services and people between China and the European Union. It is essential for a deeper and closer and mutually more beneficial relationship. I'm also very grateful for the opportunity today to have a deep discussion with Administrator Feng and his team. It was extremely useful to exchange the ideas and also the prospects of our future cooperation while looking at the past and also realizing that there is much more we can do together. I'm also very grateful for his insights, for his hospitality, and for his friendship. And we are this year having, I would think, a year of opportunities. There are many important processes, and I'll come back to that later, which are currently ongoing, which have been ongoing for a couple of years. And it is a good opportunity this year to finalize these processes, be it the PASA negotiations, be it the signature of the horizontal agreement, and it all paves the way for turning a new page and moving towards even more and deeper relationship. And I'm very much looking forward to that. It's also clear that aviation is key in improving connectivity and linking our continents, but more importantly, people and businesses. I think here it's important to remind ourselves of the premise that aviation plays a fundamental role in the global economy. It's vital for business, people-to-people contacts, tourism, as well as for the global social cohesion. Administrator said also earlier that in 2016 there were about 8 million people traveling by air between China and European Union. I think we have a much bigger potential than that. And I think that the work that we do here is also paving way for it. It's also essential for connecting the countries and regions of the world. And that's what we are also trying to do here today. But we also know that aviation and safety are intrinsically linked. There is absolutely clear that the success of aviation is much dependent on the success in the safety management and the high level of safety which has been achieved in European Union and also in China, is of course something which is the basis of our good cooperation. There are also many opportunities for strengthening the overall transport relations between China and the EU, but today, of course, we are concentrating on the aviation side. As I mentioned earlier, through the conference, the CAAC and EASA have created an excellent platform for the exchange of ideas that feeds our reflections on responding to the global challenges and paves the way for further cooperation. I would really like to congratulate the both sides for making the first CAAC-EASA Aviation Safety Conference a reality. As aviation professionals, I'm sure that you will agree with me that the aviation market is going through today profound changes. And these years also represent significant challenges regionally, but globally at the same time. At the European Union level, the initiative has been taken to analyze and address these challenges in a comprehensive way through the adoption of the Aviation Strategy for Europe, which was adopted 1.5 years ago, with the aim to turn the challenges into new opportunities for growth. We need to strengthen our European internal market and at the same time tap on the global growth. There is a lot of growth which is happening here in China, and there are also a lot of experiences from our side that we are very happy to share, and let's put those two things together and work for the benefit of both sides. Even though the aviation strategy as an initiative is an EU initiative, it has a place in the wider international context and is also in the now and in the next years to come the basis for our relationship with the other partners around the world. As this conference reminds us, the aviation business is a very global one. And as such, we must also seek to work with and involve the global aviation community in building a strategy that will allow us to address the challenges that lie ahead of all of us. We can best address these challenges through coordinated solutions. This is the only way to provide long-term, high-quality and sustainable services and to maintain the sector's relevance. It will acquire adequate tools to act where it's most effective to ensure the sector's competitiveness. It will force us to be innovative on all levels, as regulators, businesses and employees, in the way we integrate new technologies and new business models. Through the digitalization, we have also seen that more and more new opportunities and also new business models are emerging in aviation. We need to be there to be ready to embrace them as regulators, to be one step ahead and not one step behind. In the way we work together with companies to ensure our industry's competitiveness and in the way we work together among industry stakeholders. Cooperation, working together, is key for improving the competitiveness and sustainability of the aviation industry in the long term. And clearly, this is also the theme of the EU-China cooperation. Safety, market liberalization, ensuring a level playing field, sustainable development, connectivity, innovation, technological development and competitiveness are only some of the key challenges we face in the aviation world today. Just to mention, the global growth should not come at the expense of environmental deterioration. New technologies should speak to each other and be interoperable if we are to remain efficiently connected. Yesterday's successful business models may stop to deliver if they are not revised to take into account the changing conditions. I mentioned the environmental aspect, which we all know is becoming increasingly more important. I would also like in this context to thank Administrator Feng and the whole Chinese team with the excellent cooperation we had during the ICAO 39th General Assembly last year, which paved the way for the solution to cut the greenhouse gas emissions in aviation. Without the good cooperation and also without the Chinese leadership, it would not have been possible, but this is something that is a very, very important step further. Nowadays, the EU is an integrated aviation market, and the regulatory matters are mainly decided at EU level. Therefore, we are on the opinion that the EU as a whole would have more to offer to key partners like China that could be achieved through bilateral links with individual EU member states. We would be able to pool the knowledge and the experience and also bring it to you through our cooperation. China and the EU have already established a solid aviation relationship, which was reconfirmed and deepened by the signature of 2013 of the letter of intent on cooperation in a wide range of areas between the CAAC and the European Commission. The implementation of this significant engagement from both sides is ongoing parallel tracks of work, but we could do more, should do more, and also deepen our relationship further. On the safety front, the awareness of the benefits that could be achieved through enhanced technical cooperation has led to the launch, December last year, of formal negotiations for a future EU-China bilateral aviation safety agreement, the so-called CAAC-EASA. This is an excellent example of embracing new opportunities and finding ways in deepening our relationship. Administrator Feng also referred to that during his speech, and saying that that is also something which helps to pave a way of turning a new page in our relationship and by deepening our cooperation. As reflected in the letter of intent, the initial focus of these negotiations has been given to airworthiness, but it should be clear to both sides that other areas of mutual interest should also be pursued later on. Here, we are just building a solid base, but there should be many floors to add to that good base that we are currently building. And it is going to be a process that doesn't stop with the first signature. I think this conference presents a good opportunity to thank all those concerned, the CAAC, EASA, and also my Commission colleagues for their efforts, and to encourage them to continue with their efforts. We have also come a long way in our discussions related to the EU designation of airlines, and I hope I'm right when I say that we are very close to reach a common understanding. There are still a few loose ends to tie, but we hope to be able to initial the horizontal agreement in the very near future, and definitely this year. That would be another important and symbolic step forward in our relationship, an important step to confirm that we are in the course of deepening our relations. But as said, we wish to go much further with China in aviation. Taking into account the growth potential in the EU-Chinese aviation market for the benefit of both sides' aviation industry, we launched the comprehensive new EU-China aviation partnership project, under the auspices of which the organization of this conference has been made possible. This project, much more ambitious than any other previous cooperation project we have had, aims to enhance the aviation partnership between the EU and China through a broader set of activities and with a stronger involvement of the industry of both sides. Supporting the mutual development of our aviation industry and enhancing connectivity will be among the objectives of this new project. All these developments are encouraging and should pave the way for further cooperation in more formal framework. The next logical step for us would be to envisage a more comprehensive air transport relationship, a real dialogue between the EU and China. Yesterday, during our very fruitful discussion with Administrator Feng, we also talked about the potential areas where we have similar challenges and where we could partner more than we haven't done until now. They are also related to the new developments in the aviation. And these include drones. Also, Patrick Key referred to that in his speech. 70% of drones manufactured in the world are manufactured and designed in China. But drones also are a new challenge for the whole aviation, the regulatory framework, the development of the so-called U-space, which we are currently engaged. We have a lot of interesting experiences already, and we know that the Chinese partners do have as well. This is something where we can also exchange our best practices, exchange our views, and find ways how to cooperate. Air traffic management was already mentioned. Modernization of air traffic management is a huge challenge that we are going to have ahead of us in China, in European Union, elsewhere in the world. It has to be made more effective. It has to better embrace also the new solutions. We are working with many of those solutions in the European side. We are also happy to share some of these experiences and at least have a good dialogue and good exchange of views. Because with a significant increase in the aviation forecasted by almost every agency which is forecasting developments in aviation, it's clear that the current air traffic management system is simply not going to support enough this growth. So we have to go one step further. And of course, with the digitalization, drones, more digitalized air traffic management, it also creates new real challenges and threats. Cybersecurity has become an issue which is constantly being debated in the international fora. It has also taken a very strong scene in the ICAO discussions. And it goes without saying that the cybersecurity is also something where two good partners and friends should discuss among ourselves and share our practices in order to be able to withstand that threat. These were just a few areas which we can and should cooperate also in the future and build on this that we have built until now. I also firmly believe that it would make a lot of sense to establish strategic aviation partnerships with key like-minded Asian states. For example, we have been conducting interesting and in-depth discussions over the past year or so with the 10 ASEAN member states with the scope of the EU-ASEAN Aviation Working Group. And I'm very excited by the fact that we have been able to launch formal negotiations with ASEAN on the Comprehensive Air Service Agreement, something that China already has with them. And of course, that for us would be a first bloc-to-bloc agreement between an EU and another bloc. That is just a good example of our interest in this region as a whole, and where we also see that these relationships can be enhanced further. And that leads me to the last point. EU-China Comprehensive Aviation Agreement would be something that would generate significant mutual benefit. This should be our goal, and that is something which would help us to develop a genuine and deep relationship. And we have indicated in the past, we continue to stand ready to jointly explore the mutual benefits of such an agreement and to see how it could be structured to meet the needs of both sides and respond to any concerns there may be. Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, as China continues its progress as outlined in its 13th five-year plan towards taking its place as one of the primary aviation nations, it is our sincere belief that enhanced relations with the EU and the conclusions of such agreements like the BASA, but eventually also the Comprehensive Air Transport Agreement, will facilitate the attainment of our common goals on connectivity and enable developing better and coordinated responses to the global challenges of the aviation world. I'd really like to thank for the opportunity that I have had to come here and to address you. And I really thank you very much for your attention. I wish you a fruitful and interesting conference, but I also wish that this conference would allow many of you to deepen your mutual relations and find new friends, but most importantly also new good ways of working together. Thank you very much. Thank you, Administrator Feng.
Thank you, Director General Halolai, and thank you very much for your remarks, as well as for your contribution to the collaboration between the two sides, your continuous attention and guidance in this process. Our cooperation is in the interest of both sides, and we're partners, and also more importantly, we're friends. From yesterday to today, Mr. Halolai talked about this on various occasions for multiple times. That this cooperation means we're not only partners but also very good friends. This is indeed very important to us as well. We wish that the cooperation between us will be mutual beneficial, and with the deepened collaboration, we will bring more contribution and more benefits and more interests both to China and to the EU. Thank you very much again for Mr. Halolai, for your speech. Now I'd like to invite the representatives of the industry, both of China and of EU, to give their speeches. First of all, I'd like to give the floor to Mr. He Dongfeng, Vice Chairman and President and Deputy Secretary of the Party Committee of CAAC. He graduated in 2002 from with a master's degree from Beijing Institute of Technology, majoring in industrial engineering. He started his career at factory number 211 of Ministry of Aerospace Industry in 1989, and then he later worked in China Academy of Launch Vehicle Technology and deputy chair of Hong Kong-based APT Satellite Holdings, as well as Sichuan Aerospace Industrial Corporation, and he was appointed in 2013 as deputy secretary of the PC of COMAC. He was awarded with Aerospace Prize China Space Foundation Award and National May the First Label Medal. Now I'd like to give the floor to Mr. He Dongfeng. Distinguished administration, distinguished Mr. Halolai, Mr. Patrick, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Now, on behalf of COMAC, I'd like to give my congratulations to the first CAAC-EASA Aviation Safety Conference. Now, I'm going to give my speech entitling Collaboration for the Mutual Benefits on Safety Aviation. It's of three parts. The first is on COMAC. COMAC was set up in 2008 in Shanghai. Its mission is to bring more China-made aircraft into the sky and to bring more safe, economical, environmentally friendly aircrafts to our passengers, to our clients. Our major clients is ARJ21, with 7 to 90 seats. Standard is 2,000 to 3,800 miles. On the 25th, the passenger volume reached 10,000 people. We've got an order of 3,031 passengers. On 25th, we've got more than 5,000 passengers. This is not a big number for the major players in our industry. However, for COMAC, an emergent player in this industry, this is actually not a huge step, but an important step for us. The second model is C919 with 150 to 168 seats with the mileage of 4,000 to 5,000 miles. Now it will have its first flight very soon. We've completed our ground tests and our gliding tests with different latitudes. We have launched 21 tests altogether. In 185 test points currently, we are now planning for our first run. We've got an order of 570 units. Now, the long-haul wide-body aircrafts, we've just started our R&D on this one. ARJ 21 from ARJ 21 to a narrow body aircraft, and we've also registered a long haul wide body aircraft. So this has been our development for CAAC, a 9-year-old company. We've accomplished all our goals listed in our planning. Of course, we've achieved much success, but also we are confronted with a lot of challenges. Now, in the face of challenges, CAAC, with our worldwide suppliers, choose to collaborate with each other. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank CAAC for their contribution and support in the R&D phase and basically all the way in our work. They are our regulator, but also they help us a lot in our work. I am sure that in the future, CAAC, with their guidance and help, will have more successful outcome in the future. The second part is the practice, what we do in CAAC. We do our R&D according to all worthiness standards to make sure that our products are safe. We comply with all the regulations of airworthiness, and we attach great importance to the opinions and guidance given by CAAC. The most important thing for us is safety. This is a overarching principle for every employee in the CAAC. And in terms of management system, we've got safety management system and design assurance system, airworthiness system, support and maintenance system, and safety quality management systems. In terms of standardization standards, we comply with CCAR 25, and with different design features of models, we learn from the standards of CS 25 and FAR 25. In terms of methodology, we have a systematic engineering methods and a process-based methodology. Thus, from the four parts in terms of our philosophy, which anchors safety, and we have systems and standards and methodologies. This is basically what guides our work. We believe in the value of openness and collaboration. We're very willing to learn from the best practices from other sides. We've got suppliers from 14 countries. Altogether, the number of suppliers amount to 256. In terms of our partners, including GE, Saffron, and other world-renowned airlines and institutes. Our manufacturers are Airbus, Boeing, Bombardier, and other major manufacturers, and we're very willing along the way to learn from each other. In terms of institutions, organizations, industrial organizations, CAAC-EASA, FAA, and other organizations, we've all been working very closely with them. Now, in terms of mutual benefit, which is our principle, we hope that we will build a community of common destiny. We believe in mutual benefit, in mutual trust, in collaboration, and in a win-win outcome to facilitate a good outcome for both sides. We want to create more value for our customers, for our partners, to bring more opportunities to our partners, and we want to make our due contribution to the setup, to the harmonization of safety standards, and we hope that will bring more vitality to our own industry. The third part of my speech is on our suggestions given by CAAC. Safety is the foundation of our industry. The safety to keep that in mind, and safety management is the common responsibility of all our industry. Our suggestion, therefore, is the first to have bilateral airworthiness. We need to start with the validation process of C99 of EASA, and we also need to have more collaboration in the aircraft air products, including TSO products. The second suggestion is that we need to have more seminars and more exchanges in terms of airworthiness rules, standards, and procedure between the two sides. And we need to have more exchange of best practice and experience in the system building in airworthiness. And the third part is that we need to have an in-depth discussion in this in a safety system. We need to emphasize both on the quality and efficiency of our work, and to work on the manufacturing as well as safety. We need to exchange our technology and our experience. Lastly, we believe that with our common collaboration, we'll have a better future. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. He, for your speech. He talked about three suggestions of the collaboration between the two sides. This is very relevant to the topic of our conference, and my congratulations goes to CAAC for your success and for your achievements at this stage. And I would like to give my gratitude to all the professionals in this area for your input. We have all been watching very closely to see 919. We hope that we'll have a successful future in C919. I'd like to give the floor now to Airbus COO and President of Airbus Commercial Aircraft, Mr. Fabrice Ruggio. He was appointed in 2006, 2005 of CEO and President. There's also the Executive Committee of Airbus. He started his career in 1983 as a test engineer at the Creys-Malville nuclear power station, and he also worked in Alsace and Director of Economic and Financial Affairs with the Ministry of Agriculture, and he also was a consultant to multiple ministers, and he was the chairman of Apache MOG and chairman of Eurodrone GIE, and in 2006 he became the Airbus COO. Now I'd like to give the floor to Mr. Fabrice Ruggio.
Distinguished Administrator Feng Zhengling, dear Director General Enrico Lolai, dear Patrick Key, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure and a great honor for me this morning to attend this first ever CAAC-EASA Aviation Safety Conference. And I would like to extend my gratitude to everyone who has helped to organize this event. The CAAC and EASA are vital guarantors of the highest standards of safety for the worldwide aviation industry. I'm delighted to see that they expand today their cooperation with this conference. At Airbus, we are proud partners of both agencies, and it's now 15 years since we signed our first safety cooperation agreement with the CAAC. And I'm honored that the Top Safety Steering Committee, which coordinates our work together, is co-chaired by the Vice Minister of the CAAC. I'm also pleased to see representatives from across the entire industry here, from the airlines to the airframe and engine manufacturers and the maintenance companies. That's because safety is and must always be the top priority of everyone in the industry. As an industry, we've made air travel extremely safe, as it was recorded just a few minutes ago, thanks to decades of continuous improvement in technology and also operating standards. That has been the collective achievement of the entire industry and regulators. And here I would like to congratulate the CAAC for all its excellent work in regulating and overseeing China's aviation system. Thanks to your efforts, China now has one of the best safety records in the world, despite the tremendous growth of the air transportation. But our work on safety must continue. Each year, billions of passengers entrust us with their safety, and we must do our utmost to repay their trust every day. With that in mind, today I'll set out the challenges on safety facing our industry in the future, and I'll suggest 3 ways in which we should respond. First, driving advances in safest technologies. Second, educating the workforce of the future. And third, by working together towards a shared set of regulatory standards in China and the EU. So let's start with the big picture. The commercial aviation industry is expanding very fast. Every year, millions of people are taking to the skies for the first time, driven by rising wealth levels in the emerging economies. The pace of change is remarkable. Since 2002, commercial aviation traffic has more than doubled, and it will double again within the next 15 years. China and the wider Asia-Pacific region are at the center of this growth and will become the world's biggest aviation market. What are the implications of such rapid growth for the safety of commercial air travel? As an industry, we'll need to oversee the safe operation of more aircraft than ever before. In 2035, the overall size of the worldwide commercial aircraft fleet, including freighters, is likely to be roughly 40,000 compared with around 20,000 today. We must also confront an uncomfortable reality. In the industry's fatal accident rate, if this rate remains at today's level, an increase in the number of flights will herald an increase in the absolute number of fatal accidents. And that's something we must do our utmost to avoid. Meanwhile, the rise in air traffic is putting the global aviation network under enormous pressure. The world's skies and airports are becoming even more congested, and some countries are struggling to build enough new airports and runways, starting with France, to relieve that pressure. Then there is the problem of expanding the industry's workforce. Our sector's growth means that we must recruit and train an unprecedented number of people. The industry will need more than 500,000 new pilots over the next 20 years, over 25,000 a year. More than 40% of these will be required in the Asia-Pacific region. That raises the prospect of skill shortages in critical areas. It also means that, on average, the global aviation workforce is likely to be less experienced than today. So it's clear that, as an industry, we must redouble our efforts on safety if we are to strengthen our track record in the future. And what's the best way ahead? As a global aerospace manufacturer, our first priority at Airbus is quite simple: to drive continuous advances in aircraft safety technology. Over the past 2 decades, runway excursions, when an aircraft veers off or overruns the runway on takeoff or landing, have accounted for more than 1/3 of all accidents. At Airbus, we have developed technologies to address this with ROPS, which stands for Runway Overrun Prevention System. This is an automatic system that alerts pilots when there is a risk that an aircraft could overshoot that runway on landing. This technology works by continuously monitoring an aircraft's energy during the approach and landing phases, and that allows it to calculate the distance needed to stop safely on the runway. The system triggers warnings if that stopping distance is longer than the available runway, and it provides pilots with clear guidance on whether to land or to go around for another approach to the runway. This technology has proved to be especially useful in difficult flying conditions, such as in poor weather or where there is a short runway. We first introduced it on the A380, and it's now available on all aircraft from Airbus currently in production. Here, in China, Sichuan Airlines recently carried out a trial of this technology for high-altitude airports with the support of Airbus and the CAAC. Air traffic management technology is currently an especially fertile area of innovation. And we are participating in ambitious programs to modernize Europe's and the US traffic management systems, so-called CAAC-EASA and Next-Gen, respectively. And with the support of our subsidiary, NavBlue, we are working with the CAAC and Air Traffic Management Bureau to introduce the newest technologies to China too. With an air traffic increasing sharply here, this technology should help maintain the safety and efficiency of China's aviation network. All Airbus aircraft can now be equipped with ADS-B capabilities and head-up displays, bringing significant advantages: improved surveillance, reduced aircraft separation, lower operating minima, and better instrument landing system procedures. We're also using global positioning technology to drive advances in aircraft navigation. There are several acronyms for this system, such as RNAV and RNP. What this technology does is allow aircraft to fly on any desired flight path instead of being limited to those between ground-based navigation aids. As such, it's critical to improving the precision of flight operations. That in turn increases airspace capacity and reduces emissions. It also makes it easier for aircraft to negotiate congested airspace and to land in challenging conditions, such as when visibility is poor. At Airbus, we've supported the implementation of this technology at a dozen airports, and I4D trajectory technology also holds much promises. This technology is still under development as part of European CAAC project, but in the future, it will allow aircraft and air traffic controllers to exchange information with each other in real time. As a result, the aircraft will be able to adapt their speed and trajectory in flight to arrive at a given position at a particular time. That would, for example, help to reduce holding traffic above airports. Airbus recently signed an agreement with the Chinese authorities to introduce this technology here in China. And after an initial test phase, we will equip a China Southern Airlines A320neo and air traffic control center with I4D technology. The aircraft is due to fly in Chinese airspace using this technology next year. We are also active in supporting the ICAO's efforts to promote flight tracking technology around the world. And of course, we stand ready to support the CAAC and Chinese airlines with our existing tracking technology. And we are developing new tracking systems for the future too, with ADS-B satellite technology that will allow for the surveillance of aircraft traffic anywhere in the world and at any given moment. These are just a few of the latest innovations in safety technology, and I'm confident that they will help to strengthen the industry's track record in China and around the world in the years to come. My second priority for a safer commercial aviation industry is people, is educating the workforce of the future. That calls for strong partnership throughout the industry between manufacturers, operators, and regulatory authorities. And I'm delighted to say that there are some fantastic partnerships underway here in China. Since 2001, my colleagues at Airbus have helped to oversee a master's degree in aviation safety management in Tianjin, together with the CAAC, École Nationale de l'Aviation Civile in France, and the Civil Aviation University of China. The course provides middle management professionals with training of the highest quality in air traffic management and air navigation engineering. There are now more than 670 graduates of the program working for airlines, airports, air traffic control providers, and other organizations throughout China. Training also features prominently in Airbus partnership with the CAAC. We provide refresher courses in flight instruction to the CAAC and the Chinese airlines, and high-level management training courses for senior-level civil aviation officials and airline executives. As part of our partnership, we are also deepening the stock of specialist skills among China's pilots and aviation engineers. A great example, which was mentioned, I think, by Patrick, is flight data analysis. Analyzing the data generated by an aircraft can reveal safety threats. As such, flight data analysis can be an immensely valuable part of an aircraft operator's safety management system. But it's not an easy discipline to master, requiring specialist knowledge of flight physics and an aircraft's onboard systems. So we are working with CAAC and other partners to improve the knowledge and understanding of flight data analysis across the industry. In July 2015, we launched a training course here in China, which has now been taken by more than 100 pilots and flight data analysts engineers. At Airbus, we will deepen our cooperation with our Chinese partners in the months and years to come. And the A350 will be the one of our shared priorities. This is Airbus' newest wide-body aircraft and the world's most advanced passenger jet. It's incredibly fuel efficient, with 25% reduction in CO2 emissions compared to the previous generation of aircraft. Before long, Air China, China Eastern, China Southern, Sichuan, and also Beijing Capital will begin flying these great aircraft. And we will provide training for the pilots who will fly the A350 for Chinese airlines. We'll also give all necessary supports to the CAAC ahead of the validation of the aircraft type certificate. I'm immensely proud of what Airbus, the CAAC, and our other Chinese partners have achieved together so far with the strong support of the EASA. The message is clear. As an industry, we are at our best when we work together. That leads on to my third and final priority for a safer aviation industry, the harmonizing of regulatory standards between China and the EU. China and the European Union are currently negotiating a potential comprehensive aviation agreement. It's a huge opportunity to move closer to a common set of regulatory standards in China and the EU. First and foremost, that would help to guarantee that higher standards of safety regulation are applied around the world. Such an agreement would also promote trade and competitiveness. At the moment, businesses exporting goods between the EU and China must satisfy the requirements of both regulatory systems, which often overlap. So having one common set of standards in China and Europe would cut duplication and reduce the amount of time spent on regulatory compliance. That would be another important step towards a safer and more competitive commercial aviation sector, and Airbus is strongly backing the current discussions between EU and China. I conclude by emphasizing that we should all be very proud of what we have achieved collectively as an industry on safety. But we must confront new challenges as demand for air travel continues its astonishing growth. And I have every confidence that we'll be successful with the right mix of innovation and cooperation. And if we continue to support the fantastic work of the CAAC and EASA. 谢谢.
Thank you, Mr. Fabrice Brugier, for your speech. The Chinese market indeed is the largest market for Airbus. CAAC has more than 1,400 Airbus aircrafts now, and Airbus has been doing cooperation with the aviation industry in many aspects on many fronts in China. We hope that will deepen our collaboration further. Asia and will provide more high-quality aircrafts to China, contributing to the development of aviation industry to China, in China. I very much like to thank your support.